confrontum kill dixit product preservation of fostering the Muslim peace and prosperity region.
China has informed Japan that it will once again ban all imports of Japanese seafood, according to multiple media reports, adding a new layer of tension to an already fragile relationship between the two Asian powers. The decision comes as diplomatic friction intensifies following recent remarks by Japan's new Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, which Beijing strongly condemned. Her statement that a Chinese attack on Taiwan threatening Japan's survival could prompt Tokyo to consider a military response sparked backlash across China, fueling official criticism, harsh media commentary, and public anger. Beijing demanded she withdraw the comments, while also issuing a warning to its own citizens against traveling to Japan. That advisory triggered a wave of cancellations, dealing a significant blow to Japan's tourism sector at a time when its economy is already struggling to gain solid footing. The seafood ban adds yet another economic setback. Just months earlier, China had partially lifted restrictions that were initially imposed in 2023 after Japan began releasing treated wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean. The decision to reintroduce the ban, China told Japan, was linked to what it described as the need for further monitoring and evaluation of the water discharge. Although Japanese officials insist the release meets international safety standards and is closely supervised by global nuclear regulators, Beijing has repeatedly voiced skepticism and urged caution, using the issue to justify limiting Japanese food imports. As of now, Chinese government ministries have not commented publicly on the renewed ban, and Japanese officials have been slow to issue statements. But behind the scenes, the consequences are already being felt. Many Japanese companies had hoped that China's earlier easing of restrictions would allow them to re-enter a lucrative market that once purchased more than 20% of Japan's seafood exports. Nearly 700 exporters had submitted applications to resume trade with China, yet only 3 companies had received approval so far. Before the 2023 restrictions, China was Japan's biggest buyer of scallops and a major destination for sea cucumbers, both high-value exports for Japan's fishing industry. Tourism, another pillar of Japan's economy, is also taking a hit far more severe than many expected. Travel from China, which accounts for roughly a fifth of Japan's international visitors, has plunged sharply following Beijing's recent advisory. Over 10 Chinese airlines have already announced refund programs for travelers who had booked flights to Japan through the end of December. Analysts estimate that approximately 500,000 flight tickets have been canceled in a matter of days, signaling the scale of the fallout. This comes at a difficult moment for Japan, where tourism represents about 7% of the country's GDP and has been one of the most reliable engines of economic growth in recent years. The sudden collapse of inbound travel from China threatens to undermine that momentum and could ripple across hotels, restaurants, retailers, and transportation services nationwide. The travel freeze appears to extend beyond the general public. Staff members at a major state-owned Chinese bank reported that internal instructions were issued telling employees that applications for travel to Japan would not be approved for now. While not an official government ban, such internal guidance at large institutions suggests that many organizations may follow suit, further reducing travel flows and widening the economic impact. For Japan, the diplomatic strain is becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Prime Minister Takaichi's comments were described by Tokyo as consistent with the government's long-standing stance on national security and regional stability. Japan sees Taiwan's security as closely tied to its own, due to their geographical proximity and the strategic importance of the region. Tokyo's refusal to walk back the remarks indicates that no quick diplomatic resolution is likely, and tensions may continue to simmer. Meanwhile, reactions within China have been sharp. Chinese diplomats and state media have launched a series of strong statements criticizing Takaichi and portraying Japan as escalating regional tensions. This rhetoric has fueled public anger on Chinese social media platforms, where calls for boycotting Japanese products and travel destinations have gained traction. Concerned about the possibility of anti-Japanese sentiment spilling over into violent demonstrations or targeted harassment, Japan issued a safety advisory to its citizens living in China, urging them to avoid crowded places and remain vigilant. With neither side showing signs of compromise, the situation is drifting toward a prolonged standoff, with immediate and tangible economic consequences. Japan now faces not only the loss of a critical export market for its seafood industry, but also a dramatic reduction in tourism revenue, both of which are essential to the country's economic outlook. For China, the moves reflect a combination of diplomatic pressure and domestic messaging, underlining its readiness to use economic tools to signal displeasure with Japan's political stance. The reimposition of the seafood ban also highlights how deeply intertwined political tensions and economic decisions have become in the region. What once might have been a purely trade-related issue is now tied to broader questions of security, alliances, and geopolitical competition. As Japan counts the cost of these developments, the path forward remains uncertain. Both nations are major global economies with significant bilateral trade. Yet the current trajectory suggests deeper strains ahead unless diplomatic communication improves. In the meantime, businesses, travelers, and workers on both sides are left navigating the consequences of a dispute that shows no sign of easing. The coming months will reveal whether the situation stabilizes or escalates further. But for now, the impact is already unfolding across industries and borders, reshaping economic expectations and adding new tension to a region already facing complex security challenges.